Hey, Mr. Siegel and any fellow classmates that are watching this presentation. For my presentation, I picked The Office TV series. So I'm going to give you a quick overview of the show. The Office is a comedy centered on showing the day-to-day life of the staff at the Scranton branch of a paper company called Dunder Mifflin. The Office even goes deeper by depicting how relationships between members of the staff form and develop inside and outside the office. The protagonist of this TV series is Michael Scott, an impulsive and inattentive manager, played by Steve Carell. Michael and his staff members, mostly Dwight, Jim, and Pam, create memorable times in the office as they play tricks on each other, get on each other's nerves, and have humorous moments. Over the course of the series, Michael and his staff create a family bond that develops over time. A relationship that reflects this idea will be Jim and Pam's relationship as they go from being complete strangers to having a family together. If you have not watched the show, I definitely recommend it, as I binge watched this last summer. For this presentation, I chose Toby Flenderson, the Human Resources Representative. Here's a quick rundown of Toby's family, medical, and mental history. Toby has a daughter. He is single as he divorced his wife, and as a child, he had to endure the traumatic experience of his parents' divorce. From a medical standpoint, and from what we know in the show, Toby suffered a broken neck while he was living in Costa Rica, and this happened after he moved away from Scranton. More on that later in the presentation. Toby has no previous disorders I am aware of, so I don't really have much mental history on him, other than his parents' divorce.
Well, I was in the seminary for a year and dropped out because I wanted to have sex with this girl, Kathy. Followed her back to Scranton, took the first job I could find in HR. Later, she divorced me. So, no, I wouldn't say I have a passion for HR.
Why you always gotta be so mean to me?
So, from those videos you saw and what I know about Toby's behavior in other episodes of the show, we can point out that Toby is very disinterested in his job. He does not want to put in any effort. Toby realizes that he has endured a lot of bad luck in his life and cites that as a reason for his unhappy state of mind. And this point relates back to the last video when he talked with God. In addition, Toby is very socially isolated. The reasons why he is socially isolated because he strikes many people as odd. On top of that, Toby is constantly abused by his manager, Michael, because he sees Toby as a miserable person, a person who contrasts his enthusiastic personality. One of their encounters perfectly describes this duality. Michael told Toby he was lame since he stopped Michael from having kids at a Christmas party, which featured alcohol and such. Toby's really much of the rules guy around the office. For the picture on the slide, this picture shows Toby with Pam and Jim. In this scene of the TV series, Toby tries to make romantic moves on Pam, and she does not take a liking to that. Everyone in the office stares at him. Toby immediately pulls back his hand and runs out of the office. From the picture, I can tell you that Toby's not confident in expressing his feelings of love. He has this fear of embarrassment as he runs away from the scene. Since Toby had his own problems with relationships, he does not like to see any display of any love relationships in the office because it painfully reminds him of his divorce. For the most part of the series, he does try to branch out to other people in the office, but is quickly harassed by Michael, and no one really gets to know him as much. You could connect this point back to his social isolation. From the previous slide and what I described about Toby's behavior, I would diagnose him with persistent depressive disorder, or also known as dysthymia. And these pictures are kind of a representation of that. The main feature of persistent depressive disorder, or dysthymia, is the depressed mood that occurs for a long duration of time, usually for a period of a year. Interestingly enough, persistent depressive disorder can occur simultaneously with major depressive disorder. The way to distinguish between the two is the time length that the person experiences the symptoms. Usually, people who experience disorder have very sad moods or feel down in the dumps. Relating this all back to the client, Toby exhibits low energy as he does not really want to be at his job and carries a sullen mood throughout his time at the office. Toby displays low self-esteem, which is a symptom of dysthymia. Toby has poor concentration as he is really not aware of his surroundings, as he is too focused on himself. Toby experiences hopelessness in that last film clip where he pleaded to God. So based on these characteristics, the DSM proves that Toby exhibits the symptoms of dysthymia. So now on to the next slide. Even though Toby has symptoms of dysthymia, before he goes to Costa Rica, he is very professionally functional in society, as he does his job efficiently, as he cracks down on maintaining safety protocols, and he is on top of his duties at HR. So socially, though, he's not very functional, as he creates divide in his relationships, and he tries to branch out, but he is socially isolated by his fellow co-workers. During his time in Costa Rica, Toby is not functional in society, as he's physically incapacitated and cannot survive on his own because of his broken neck. Toby is by himself in Costa Rica, so it is safe to assume that his social skills deteriorate significantly. You kind of see that in the down rating I give. When he comes back to the office, Toby can still function in society to a small degree because he only sees his job and the documentary as a way that gives meaning to his life. Toby has been so entrenched in the idea that someone watching him out there provides him company, so his mental state is at an ultimate low, but he's physically able to do work. Also, Toby has a couple of strengths that help him to cope with his deteriorated social state. His tolerance of Michael's continual abuse has helped him to not break down in front of others. Toby has developed a mechanism to shut down Michael, and this mechanism can be shown through Toby's body language when he encounters Michael. Another strength of Toby's would be his daughter. His daughter gives him enough energy to function fairly well in society. In one of the episodes, Toby goes at all costs to buy a doll for his daughter because he wants her love, a love that no one else can give him. Despite being harassed, this strength aligns with his tolerance, but his strength is his caring nature. Toby looks out for all the people in the office, not mostly because it's his job, but he wants to be part of this family the office has created, but he's distant from this family. So there are a couple ways to treat dysthymia. One approach would be psychotherapy. For Kobe's current state, it would be wise for him to be able to discuss with a therapist about his problems one-on-one, and the therapist could help devise ways with him to cope with this condition. Client-centered therapy is an example of this one-on-one interaction. You could also treat dysthymia from a group perspective, which would help him to gain feedback from other people who are in a similar position. A group therapy program could help Toby to open more about his social problems and gain support from others could facilitate that course. Another approach would be to prescribe antidepressant drugs in the short term to help him cope with his depression disorder. Since dysthymia is more of a long-term disorder, I would not recommend this treatment option for Toby because it could result in an overuse of the antidepressant drug, and it would not help him in his overall progress in treating the disorder. In the office, Toby does not really seek any treatment at all, and he doesn't really acknowledge that he's needs treatment. And I kind of gave you an example of the antidepressant drugs. So, my prognosis for dysthymia concerning Toby's situation is that he would continue to experience the symptoms for a couple of years. The effects could vary. The road ahead for Toby lies very steep as his social skills will distance him from society and he will not be able to handle change in his life healthily and properly. If Toby continues on his current path, he will experience major depressive episodes frequently, and with the combination of dysthymia and major depressive disorder, Toby could be at the risk of committing suicide. So he's in a very vulnerable position, as it is already. The Office is not at all a concrete depiction of real life because it is a mockumentary. That's how it was made, and it is focused more on portraying aspects of humor and satire. If you didn't know, The Office is a documentary that shows the transformation of the cast over a period of years. And it is definitely not like a modern-day office setting. From an outsider point of view, I think they would have a similar description of his behavior just as I described him. Based on his behavior, that person could reason to the point where they see Toby as a depressive figure throughout the show. At the slightest, I think they would also agree with my functional assessment of him because he does not allow much of his internal problems to be fully projected onto his coworkers. He is reserved in a sense. Overall, even though The Office is a comedy, I see the show as a very insightful way to show persistent depressive disorder, because it depicts a person's behavior over a long period of time. Even though I hinted at Michael's abuse seeming to be a cause of this disorder, it is definitely not a cause at all. So by observing Toby's behavior, you can really delineate certain parts and apply a knowledge of depressive disorders to his behavior. So that kind of really sums it up for me. And yeah, this last slide went over the social implications and how other people would view his behavior. And thanks for watching this video, and see y'all later.